All right, 6.3 answers. The first one, this is an inscribed angle. Inscribed angles are always half as big as the arc. Since the central angle is 130, the arc is 130, so the inscribed angle is half of that, or 65. On this one, I have an angle that makes a semicircle. One of the conjectures is that if an angle is inscribed in a semicircle, it's 90 degrees. That's because this arc is 180, so the inscribed angle is half of that. Then you can use the triangle and do 180 minus 90 minus 60 and get that there are 30 degrees left. On number 3, the inscribed angle is 95. So the arc that it makes, this entire arc, is going to be twice that, or 190 degrees. If this part is 120, subtract that off, and we have 70 degrees left. If you looked in the back of your book at the hint on number 4, it said draw in a radius to the point of tangency, and then you know that that angle is 90 degrees. Now you can use the triangle and do 180 minus 40 minus 90 and get that the central angle is 50. Central angles are always the same as the arc, so the arc is also 50. For this one, this inscribed angle is 20, so the arc is twice that. That arc is going to be 40. Since this chord goes right through the center, it's a diameter, making half the circle on each side. So if I do 180 minus that 40, I get D is 140. There are also 180 degrees on this side, so if I take 180 minus that 96, I get that this arc is 84, and the inscribed angle is going to be half of it, so the inscribed angle is 42. For number 6, we're going to use inscribed angles again. First thing that I'm noticing is that this is 90, and it's a cyclic quadrilateral. There was a conjecture that said the opposite angles in a cyclic quadrilateral are supplementary, so they add up to 180. So if this one's 90, that one has to also be 90, so that they add up to 180. Then I know that that angle is 75, so the arc that it makes is going to be twice 75, or 150. Then I can use the entire circle to figure out G. The entire circle is 360, minus 110, minus 150 tells me that G is 100. For number 7, that shape is a rhombus, so that means all of those sides are congruent, and we're supposed to figure out how big W is. This arc is 130, which means its central angle is 130, which means its vertical angle is 130. Since this is circumscribed, those are all points of tangency, so we have 90 degrees here, 90 degrees there. I know in a four-sided shape like this, there's a total of 360 degrees, so do 360 minus 90 minus 130 minus 90, and you get 50 degrees left. Number 8, that shape is a rectangle. Rectangles have parallel sides, and one of your conjectures was if the sides are parallel, the arcs are congruent, so both of those are x. These are also parallel on the rectangle, so if this one's 32, that one's also 32. So I can take the full circle, subtract 32, and whatever I get, cut it in half, and that's why x is 148. For number 9, that's a kite. So on that kite, I have a 136 degree arc. That means the angle that makes that arc right here has to be half of it. Half of 136 is 58, more than that. Thank you, 68. So if that one's 68, this one's also going to be 68. Kites meet at perfect 90-degree angles with their diagonals, so I can figure out using this little triangle what 180 minus 90 minus 68 is. It's 22. If that angle is 22, since it's inscribed, the arc is going to be double that, or 44. On 10, we've got an isosceles triangle, so we'll do 180 minus 38, and whatever we get, we'll cut it in half. So each one of those two angles needs to be 142 cut in half. Each one's going to be 71. If the angle is 71 and it's inscribed, the arc is going to be double. So the arc is 142. On 11, all of these chords are congruent. If all the chords are congruent, that means all 6 of these arcs are congruent. So take 360 and divide it into 6 equal parts. That's how we get that S is 60. Then I know that each of those arcs is 60, so 60, 60, 60, 60. This big arc is 240, so the inscribed angle is going to be half of that. Half of 240 tells me R is going to be 120. For number 12, we know a couple things. First thing that I'm noticing is that is 90 degrees, which means that the arc that it makes must be 180. And if that's 180, it's also 180 on the other side. So that's how I can get M. M is going to be 180 minus 40, or 140. To get angle N is right here. So I need to figure out how many degrees is this part of the circle, and whatever I get, I'm going to cut it in half, and that'll be N. Well, I know that this is 40 and this is 98, so together those two add up to 138. Now I can do the full circle and subtract 138 to get how many degrees this arc is. This arc is going to be 222 when you subtract it. If the arc is 222, the inscribed angle is half of that, or 111. On 13, they tell us that AB is parallel to CD. Figure out the measure of P and of Q. Well, first of all, that central angle is 120, so that's 120. This central angle is 98, so the arc is 98. And then the lines are parallel. One of our conjectures is that parallel lines make congruent arcs. So if that's P, that one is also P. So take your full 360, subtract the 120, subtract the 98. That should be 142. Take that and cut it into 2 equal parts. So each one of those has to be 71 degrees. Then to get angle Q, for Q, use the fact that this is a radius and this is a radius. And since they're both a radius, that triangle is isosceles. So take 180 minus 98, and whatever you get, cut it in half, because both of the base angles are going to be the same. When you do that, you get that Q is 41. 14, find the sum of all those angles. They don't care what they are individually, they want the sum. First thing I'm noticing is that angle A makes this much of the circle. Angle B makes this much of the circle. C makes this much, D this much, and E that much. So all together, those 5 angles end up making the entire circle. But those angles are all inscribed angles. So those angles are going to be exactly half of whatever the arc is. So since the arc is a total of 360, the angles are going to add up to be half of that, or 180. On 15, I've got an inscribed angle here that makes an 80-degree arc. That arc is 80, the inscribed angle is going to be 40. I've got another inscribed angle over here that makes a 70-degree arc. If that arc is 70, the angle is going to be half of it, or 35. Now I can use my triangle trick and figure out what the angle where the little dot is. 180 minus 40 minus 35 is 105 degrees. And y is a linear pair with that one. So 180 minus 105 gives me an angle of 75 degrees. For 16, We have two arcs that make the exact same, or sorry, two inscribed angles that make the exact same arc. That angle makes this arc, and this angle makes the same arc. One of your conjectures is if two angles make the exact same arc, they should be congruent, and those two angles are not, so that's what's wrong. On 17, explain why the arcs are congruent. The arcs are congruent because the angles that make them are congruent. If you focus on this triangle right here, this triangle has 90 degrees and it has angle C, whatever angle C is. This other triangle right here also has 90 degrees and an angle C. So even though the triangles aren't congruent, the angles are going to be the same. Because to get this angle, I would do 180 minus 90 minus angle C. To get this angle in the red triangle, I do 180 minus 90 minus angle C. So these two angles are congruent. And if these angles are congruent, the arcs that they make are congruent. So this arc is congruent to that arc, which is what they wanted us to show. For the last one, the answers are all there. Let's go through how we would get them. Starting off with A. This is a five-sided shape. So from the last chapter, I know that the total of the degrees in a five-sided shape is 5 minus 2 times 180, or a total of 540 degrees. All 5 of them are marked as congruent, so take that total and divide it by 5 to get that A is 108. Since they're all congruent, this one over here is also 108, so I can get angle B by doing 180 minus 108. That angle is going to be 72 for B. Same sort of thing works up here. The interior one is 108, the exterior one is 72. Now I know two angles in that triangle, so I can do 180 total minus 72 minus 72 and get that angle C is 36. For D, we'll use vertical angles. The interior angle is 108, so its vertical angle is also 108. For E, we'll use the fact that these lines are parallel, so E and D are alternate interior angles. So they're both congruent and they're both 108. For angle F, we're going to use the fact that a different pair of lines are parallel. This one is parallel to that one. E and F are not going to be congruent, but they are going to be supplementary. Here's why. If that one's 108, its linear pair is 72, and the 72 and the F are congruent because they're corresponding angles. So F is 72. There are a couple different ways to get G. Probably the easiest is to look at the corresponding angle up there at the top. Corresponding angles are congruent, so G is 108. That means, let's see, the next letter alphabetically after G is H. H is going to be 90 because there's a 90-degree angle right next to it, and they make a straight line or a linear pair. So do 180 minus 90 to get that H is also 90. Then we'll look at angle L. For angle L, I'm going to need to figure out how many degrees its vertical angle is. So let's erase a little bit. I'm seeing a really big triangle right here. And in that really big triangle, I figured out before that that was 108, and I figured out that this one was 36. So I can do 180 minus 108 minus 36 and get that the angle that's left is also 36, and that's vertical with the L. So L is going to be 36 too. Before I do M, I'm going to do N first because I have a little triangle right there to look at. In that little triangle, to figure out N, I can do 180 total minus 90 minus 36 to get that N is 54. To get angle M, I'm going to do something pretty similar. For angle M, I'm just going to focus on a different triangle. I'm going to look at this triangle. I know that this angle down here is 90. I need to figure out how many degrees this angle is, and then I'll subtract them both from 180. To figure that one out, we know right now that this one's 36. We know that angle G is 108, so we can use the straight line thing. 180 minus 36 minus 108 tells me that 36 degrees are left for right there. L is also 36, so the angle in the triangle total is 72 degrees. 90, 72, that one's M, so do 180 minus 90 minus 72, and that's how we get M is 18. For the last one, angle P, we'll look at one last triangle. This time we're going to look at the triangle that's right here. Just a minute ago we figured out this one was 36. We know from before that F is 72, so we can figure out the one that's right next to a 72 must be 108. So use the triangle. 180 minus 108 minus 36 gives us 36 degrees left for angle P.